Loneliness is one of the most painful experiences a person can go through. It creeps in like a shadow, making you wonder why the world feels distant, why friends disappear, and why relationships seem out of reach. You look around and see people forming connections, sharing laughter, and living with companionship. Yet you find yourself walking a different path, one of solitude. But what if this loneliness was not a curse, but a blessing in disguise? What if the very thing you see as isolation is, in reality, a divine selection? Throughout history, those who were closest to Allah often found themselves alone. The great prophets, the scholars of Islam, and the most righteous believers walked this earth, not surrounded by crowds, but wrapped in solitude. They were abandoned by their people, misunderstood by their families, and rejected by their communities. Yet, their isolation did not weaken them, it strengthened them. Their loneliness did not break them, it built them into legends of faith. Why does this happen? Why does Allah choose some of His most beloved servants to walk this world alone? Is it a test, a punishment, or is there something far deeper behind this reality? In this video, we will explore 8 profound reasons why Allah's chosen ones experience loneliness. Each reason will unveil a deeper wisdom, a hidden mercy, and a powerful truth that may change the way you see your own solitude. By the end of this journey, you will realize that being alone does not mean being forgotten. It does not mean being unloved. It does not mean being unworthy. Rather, it is a sign that Allah has chosen you for something greater, something beyond the limits of this world. So stay with us until the end, and let your heart uncover the wisdom behind your solitude. Because loneliness, when viewed through the lens of faith, is not a burden, it is a gift, a calling, a path only the strongest souls are chosen to walk. Loneliness has always been the path of the righteous. It is not a new experience, nor is it unique to you. Some of the greatest human beings to walk this earth, those whom Allah personally selected to guide humanity, faced the deepest forms of isolation. And yet, their loneliness was not a sign of weakness. It was not a punishment. It was a necessary journey, one that strengthened their faith, purified their souls, and prepared them for a mission far greater than themselves. Look at the life of Prophet Muhammad. He was known as Al-Amin, the most trustworthy. A man of perfect character, kindness, and wisdom. His people admired him before he received revelation. They respected his honesty, relied on his judgment, and praised his noble nature. But the moment he stood up and proclaimed the truth, when he called his people to the worship of Allah alone, everything changed. His own tribe turned against him. Those who once loved him now rejected him. He was mocked, insulted, and driven out of his homeland. His closest companions were tortured. His own uncle, Abu Lahab, became one of his greatest enemies. The streets of Makkah, where he once walked with honor, became places of hardship and humiliation. But was he truly alone? No. Allah was with him. And before him, look at Prophet Musa. Raised in the palace of Pharaoh, he had status, wealth, and comfort. But when he stood for justice, when he confronted oppression, he found himself alone. He was forced to flee Egypt with no one by his side, escaping into the unknown. He had no home, no family, no companionship, only his faith in Allah. Yet in that solitude, Allah was preparing him for something far greater. And what about Prophet Ibrahim a.s.? He stood firm in his belief in one God when his entire community worshipped idols. His own father, the man who raised him, turned against him. His people threw him into a raging fire for rejecting their false gods. Imagine standing alone, knowing that every single person around you wants to see you destroyed. Yet in that moment of absolute isolation, Allah made the fire cool and safe for him. These stories are not distant tales of the past. They hold a message for you, for anyone who feels abandoned or rejected, for choosing the path of truth. Allah tells us in the Quran, "And thus did we make for every prophet an enemy from among the criminals. But sufficient is your Lord as a guide and a helper." Surah Al-Furqan 25:31. This verse is a reminder that loneliness is not a punishment, but a part of the journey. Every prophet faced opposition, every righteous person walked the road of isolation. But what do all of their stories have in common? Allah never left them. So, if you feel alone in your journey, if people turn away from you because of your faith, because of your values, or because you choose to stand for what is right, then know that you are walking the path of the greatest souls in history. Being alone is not a sign of rejection. It is a sign that you are among the chosen. Truth is powerful. It is pure, unshakable, and unchangeable. But it is also heavy. Not everyone can carry it, and not everyone wants to hear it. This is why those who stand firmly upon the truth often find themselves walking alone. Allah's chosen ones are not isolated because they are weak or insignificant. They are alone because they bear a responsibility that many people are unwilling to accept. They carry a message that challenges the comfort of falsehood, and this makes them outcasts in the eyes of those who refuse to change. From the beginning of time, the truth has always been a stranger in this world. People are naturally drawn to what is easy, what pleases their desires, and what does not require them to change. But when someone stands up and speaks the truth, when they remind people of their Creator, of their duties, of what is right and what is wrong, they become an unwelcome voice in a world that prefers silence over sincerity. The Prophet Muhammad warned us and beslunned us about this reality. Islam began as something strange and will return to being strange, so glad tidings to the strangers. Think about those words. Glad tidings to the strangers, the ones who are looked at differently, the ones who do not blend into the crowd, the ones who refuse to follow the flow of a misguided society. These are the people whom Allah honors. Their isolation is not a punishment, it is a mark of distinction. Look around you. When you choose to live righteously, when you reject dishonesty, immorality, and oppression, you may notice that people start to distance themselves from you. Friends who once stood by your side may drift away. Family members may misunderstand you. Society may label you as different, and in those moments you may wonder, why? Why does doing the right thing make me feel so alone? But remember, you are not alone. You are simply carrying something that many are too afraid to bear. The truth is not popular, but it is eternal. And those who uphold it, even in solitude, are never truly alone, for Allah is with them. The loneliness of the chosen is not because they are unwanted. It is because the truth they uphold is too heavy for most people to carry. And only the strongest souls are given the honor of carrying it. Solitude is a test of patience, a test of sincerity, and a test of faith. When Allah chooses someone for a higher purpose, He often removes distractions from their lives, not as a punishment, but as a means of purification. In a world filled with noise, attention, and recognition, it is easy for intentions to become clouded. People often do good deeds, but deep inside they seek approval from others. They want their kindness to be noticed, their worship to be praised, their righteousness to be acknowledged. But Allah wants sincerity, ikhlas, a heart that does good, not for the eyes of people, but for the sake of Allah alone. And this is why the chosen ones often experience loneliness. When you are alone, there is no one to impress, no one to clap for you, no one to validate your faith. In that solitude, your worship becomes pure, your reliance shifts entirely to Allah, and your heart is tested in its truest form. Allah says in the Quran, "And be patient, for indeed, Allah does not allow to be lost the reward of those who do good." Surah Hud 11:15. Patience in loneliness is not just about enduring pain. It is about learning to love the presence of Allah more than the presence of people. It is about realizing that your worth is not measured by how many friends you have, how many people admire you, or how accepted you are by society. Your worth is measured by your sincerity before Allah. Think of the great figures in Islamic history. Prophet Yusuf was abandoned by his own brothers and thrown into a well. He spent years in prison, falsely accused and forgotten by the world. Yet in that isolation, he turned to Allah, and Allah raised his status. Prophet Ayub lost his health, his wealth, and even his loved ones. He was left alone with nothing but his faith, and yet he remained patient. And through that patience, Allah restored him with even greater blessings. This is the secret behind the loneliness of the chosen ones. It is not a punishment, it is a path. A path that forces you to rely on Allah alone. A path that teaches you to worship, not for recognition, but for sincerity. A path that removes everything unnecessary so that your heart becomes attached only to what truly matters. So if you find yourself alone, struggling with silence, wondering why people have disappeared from your life, know that this is not a curse. It is a gift, a divine selection. because Allah does not allow the efforts of the patient to go to waste. And those who endure with sincerity will be rewarded in ways beyond their imagination. The chosen ones experience loneliness so that their faith is built upon patience, not popularity. The more you turn toward Allah, the less you crave the approval of people. The closer you grow to your Creator, the more you realize that the attachments of this world are temporary, fleeting, and often a distraction from your true purpose. Many people chase relationships, friendships, and social validation, believing that these connections will bring them happiness. But how often do these very attachments lead to heartbreak, disappointment, and a loss of focus on what truly matters? How many friendships are built on self-interest? How many relationships weaken one's connection to Allah rather than strengthen it? How many people compromise their faith just to feel accepted by others? Allah reminds us in the Quran, "And this worldly life is nothing but amusement and diversion, but the home of the hereafter is best for those who fear Allah. So will you not reason?" Surah Al-An'am 6:32. This life is a test, a temporary stop on the way to something greater. Yet, people become attached to its distractions, wealth, status, companionship, all of which will eventually fade. The chosen ones of Allah, however, are often separated from these attachments, not because they are unworthy of love or companionship, but because Allah is protecting them. Sometimes, the loneliness you experience is Allah's way of removing harmful distractions from your life. He is keeping you away from friendships that might corrupt your heart, relationships that might weaken your faith, and attachments that might distance you from Him. It is a painful process, but it is a necessary one. Because true success is not in how many people surround you, but in how strong your connection to Allah remains, even when no one is around. Look at the lives of the most beloved people to Allah. Prophet Ibrahim was detached from his family when they rejected his call to Tawheed. Prophet Yusuf was separated from his loved ones, taken away from his father, and thrown into isolation. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ lost those closest to him, his beloved wife Khadija, his uncle Abu Talib. But through those losses, his reliance on Allah became unshakable. If you find yourself alone, feeling disconnected from the world, understand that this is not without wisdom. Perhaps Allah is pulling you away from what is temporary to give you something eternal. Perhaps He is teaching you that your heart should not be dependent on people, but on Him alone. Being alone is not abandonment. It is protection. It is preparation. It is a sign that Allah wants your heart to be attached, not to this world, but to Him. Every great mission requires preparation. And before Allah raises someone to a higher status, He first takes them through a period of isolation. This is not a punishment. It is a transformation. A time to grow, to reflect, and to build the strength needed for what lies ahead. Look at the stories of the greatest men in history. Prophet Musa spent years away from his people in Madian before Allah called him to lead Bani Israel. He was not given his mission immediately. Instead, he endured loneliness, hardship, and self-discovery before standing before Pharaoh. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ would regularly retreat to the cave of Hira, away from society, away from the distractions of the world. And it was in that solitude that he received the first revelation, the words that would change the world forever. Even beyond the prophets, the great scholars of Islam experienced similar journeys. Imam al-Ghazali, one of the most influential thinkers in Islamic history, withdrew from society for years to purify his heart and gain spiritual clarity. And when he returned, his knowledge and wisdom transformed the Muslim world. Allah's Messenger ﷺ said, "Whoever treads a path in search of knowledge, Allah will make easy for him the path to Jannah." If you find yourself alone, feeling disconnected from people, wondering why you have been distanced from the world, perhaps it is because Allah is preparing you for something greater. Before a tree bears fruit, its roots must grow deep in the darkness of the soil. Before a warrior is sent to battle, he must train in solitude. Before a heart is ready to lead, it must be cleansed of distractions. Your period of isolation is not meaningless. It is your training ground. It is where Allah strengthens your heart, sharpens your mind, and builds your character. It is where He teaches you patience, sincerity, and resilience. The loneliness of today may be the foundation of a greater purpose tomorrow. Stay patient. Stay committed. Because when Allah prepares someone for something great, He first separates them from the noise of the world so they can hear His call more clearly. When the world around you feels empty, when the people you once relied on drift away, there is one truth that remains constant. Allah is always near. In the moments of isolation, when you feel that there is no one to turn to, know that the door to your Creator is always open. There is a profound beauty in being alone with Allah. It is in these quiet moments, free from distractions, that your soul can speak directly to its Lord. When no human ear is listening, the divine ear is always attentive. Allah promises in the Quran, "And when my servants ask you concerning me, indeed I am near. I respond to the invocation of the supplicant when he calls upon me." Surah Al-Baqarah 86. This verse is a powerful reminder that, in solitude, the distance between you and your Creator disappears. When the world closes its doors, Allah opens His. When people turn their backs, Allah remains, waiting for you to turn toward Him. Loneliness is not the absence of companionship. It is an invitation from Allah to build a relationship with Him that surpasses any human bond. While friendships and relationships may come and go, the relationship with Allah is eternal. In the stillness of solitude, you have the opportunity to purify your heart, strengthen your faith, and connect with your Creator in a way that you might not be able to do when surrounded by others. Your du'as become more meaningful, your worship more focused, and your heart more sincere. The loneliness you experience is not a sign of abandonment. It is a sign that Allah is drawing you closer. He wants you to experience a level of intimacy with Him that cannot be found in the company of people. In your solitude, Allah becomes your closest companion, your most reliable friend, and your greatest support. So when you feel the weight of loneliness, remember, it is not a void. It is a sacred space where you can draw closer to the One who never leaves. Let your heart find comfort in the remembrance of Allah, for in His presence, you are never truly alone. Loneliness has a way of bringing you face to face with yourself. In those quiet moments, when there is no one around to distract you or shield you from your thoughts, the heart is exposed. The flaws, weaknesses, and internal struggles that may have been hidden beneath the surface begin to emerge. But this is not a punishment. It is a mercy from Allah. It is in these moments of solitude that the soul undergoes purification. The distractions of the world are removed, and you are given the chance to reflect deeply on your own heart. In solitude, the heart is cleansed from arrogance. It is easy to become proud when surrounded by praise and admiration. But when alone you see the truth. You are nothing without Allah. Your wealth, status, and appearance hold no value in the eyes of your Creator. It is your sincerity, your actions, and your intentions that matter most. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Indeed, Allah does not look at your appearance or wealth, but He looks at your heart and deeds." Loneliness strips away the superficial. It takes you beyond the things that the world values and brings you to the essence of who you truly are. It forces you to examine your heart and your actions. Are they in alignment with the values that please Allah? Are you truly seeking His approval, or are you still seeking the validation of people? Through this isolation, the mind is purified from distractions. In a world full of noise, it's easy to lose focus on the bigger picture. But when you are alone, you are given the space to reflect, to renew your intentions, and to recalibrate your heart. The journey of purification is not always easy, but it is essential for spiritual growth. The loneliness you feel is not an emptiness. It is a divine process of refinement. It is Allah's way of preparing you for something greater. Through this process, your soul is shaped for the challenges and responsibilities ahead. The pain of loneliness, the discomfort of isolation, is the very thing that molds you into a stronger, more sincere servant of Allah. So when you find yourself alone, do not see it as a burden. See it as an opportunity for growth, for purification, and for the opportunity to draw closer to Allah. Through this process, the soul becomes purer, the heart becomes humbler, and the spirit becomes more connected to the divine. Your loneliness is part of Allah's plan to elevate you to a higher state. The world often feels like a place where everything is temporary. Friendships fade, relationships change, and moments of joy are followed by times of sadness. But for those who endure loneliness for the sake of Allah, there is a reward that is eternal, a reward that far exceeds the trials and hardships they face in this life. Loneliness in this world may feel painful, but it is a test, and like all tests from Allah, it comes with a promise of great reward. Those who endure the solitude, who persevere with patience, and who turn to Allah in their loneliness will be elevated to an honored status in the hereafter. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Verily, Allah loves those who are righteous, self-sufficient, and unnoticed." 5. This hadith is a reminder that in the eyes of Allah, it is not the number of people around you or the validation you receive from the world that matters. What matters is your righteousness, your sincerity, and your ability to remain steadfast, even when no one is watching. Allah loves those who remain humble, who do not seek attention, and who rely solely on Him. On the Day of Judgment, when many will be lost, those who remain true to their faith in solitude will be among the honored. They will be in the company of the prophets, the righteous, and ultimately Allah Himself. Their reward will be beyond what they could have imagined, a reward that will erase all the pain and loneliness they faced in this world. Jannah awaits them, the companionship of those who followed the straight path, the prophets who walked this earth, and the ultimate reward of being in the presence of Allah Himself is a gift that cannot be compared to anything in this world. The loneliness they endured will be forgotten, replaced by eternal peace, joy, and closeness to their Creator. So, when you experience loneliness in this world, remember that it is a temporary trial. The companionship of Allah, the prophets, and the righteous will be yours in the hereafter. The loneliness you endure now will be rewarded in a way that no worldly friendship or relationship can ever compare to. Your solitude in this world is a stepping stone to a paradise that will make every moment of loneliness worth it. If you find yourself feeling alone, do not let despair take hold of your heart. You are not forsaken. You are not abandoned. In fact, you are being prepared for something greater. The isolation you experience is not a rejection from the world, but a form of protection from Allah. Allah's chosen ones often walk a path of solitude, but that path is not one of emptiness. It is a path of closeness to the Creator. Even when the world feels distant, even when friends and loved ones may seem far away, remember this: you are never truly alone. Allah is always with you. The Quran reminds us, "Indeed, Allah is with those who fear Him and those doers of good." 16 Quran 128. This verse is a powerful assurance. No matter how isolated you may feel, Allah's presence is nearer to you than anyone else. His support is greater than any human companionship. In your solitude, He is with you, guiding you, protecting you, and preparing you for the next chapter of your journey. Your loneliness is not a burden. It is a sign of your divine selection. Allah has chosen you for a path that few walk, a path that leads to purification, strength, and closeness to Him. Embrace this solitude, for it is not a punishment. It is a means of getting closer to the one who never leaves, who never forsakes. When you feel abandoned by the world, turn to Allah. Pour your heart out in dua. Let this time of solitude strengthen your bond with your Creator. Know that every moment spent alone in remembrance of Allah is a moment that brings you closer to the eternal reward that awaits you. May Allah bless you and keep you steadfast on this path. May He grant you patience, clarity, and the strength to embrace the honor of being chosen. Ameen.